the signaller in his job of signalling trains safely. So the diagram at the top indicates the area that the signal box used to control. So half of the station, the Birmingham half, this half, out towards about 1.5 miles down the track. If anyone's local to the area, the Banbury Canal just comes under the railway line there. The line to Woodford Hulse used to come off here, and there used to be a line to Roxton that used to join the line there. That's the ironstone line, yeah. So we have two main lines coming through Banbury. We have the yellow and blue line, which is this line here, is what we call the up line. Up is generally towards London, but depending on the area of the country that you're in, up can be towards Edinburgh if you're in Scotland. Any major conurbation, but generally if trains are going towards London, the up line is towards London. The down line, which is the green and brown coloured line, conversely is the opposite, is away from London. Banbury also has two goods loops. We have an up goods loop, which is the furthest track that you can see out the window here. It's long enough for two freight trains. So freight trains that we get through Banbury can run up to about 650 metres long. So they're some of the longest freight trains that you'll see in the country. Generally container traffic, which is going from Southampton through to Birmingham, Wakefield, Manchester. They can carry anything. A lot of it's white goods, but it can carry polystyrene. You can have trainloads of whiskey, hay. So, the up goods loop, take two freight trains in there. Main reason for having goods loops is that obviously the freight trains are substantially slower than a lot of passenger trains. The line speed coming up to Banbury from Leamington Spa is 90 miles an hour. It goes down to 75 miles an hour through the station and then goes back up to 90, 95 as well. So goods loops, get the slower freight trains in there. Freight trains can only run up to a maximum of 75 miles an hour. Then we have slower speed ones, 60 miles an hour. Then even slower than that, 45 miles an hour. So it's a good idea to have a nice long freight train in there. Get the passenger trains through, and then when there's a margin to do it, get the freight trains working out again. On the top, we've got the line coming in from platform 1 on the top left-hand side of the diagram. Carries on behind this signal box here, and it's the down goods loop after that. It's only generally long enough for one freight train. We have a stone train that comes into Banbury about 5:30 in the morning, twice a week on a Tuesday and a Thursday. It comes up from Leicestershire. So it comes up on the up line from Leamington Spa through Cropredy, drops into the up goods loop, runs into the back of the station. They'll detach the locomotive from the front of it, run round to the other side of the train. When it comes back out, it crosses over all the way onto the down goods loop. And you see we've got two sidings there. So as I say, that's about 1.25 miles away. And the two sidings are there for them to load and unload the stone. It takes about 4 hours, all things told, once the train's in there. For the shunter to do his work, split the train into different parts, shunt them into the different sidings, and it goes back off to Leicester again. Diagram, numbers on here correspond with the numbers that are on the lever frame. So as we come up, signal number 51, which is a colour light signal, is the first signal on the up line from Leamington Spa. That corresponds with lever number 51. All the different colours on the levers will tell the signaller the different job that the lever does. So the red levers, they do the signals. White levers, they used to do something, but they don't anymore. So this stretch of levers here, 60 to 64, they used to control the entrance to the goods yard that was over there. So just behind, you'll see all of that tree line there, stretching from this signal box out towards where the motorway is, where the industrial estate is. Used to be an enormous goods yard at Banbury, so had something like 30, 34 sidings in there. Absolutely huge. Still there in some form until the 80s when it closed completely, and they built those houses in the middle of the 90s. So these levers here used to control it, but they don't anymore, so they painted them white.
Were they just ground signals all over?
So these here were the points and blocking the points and the signals, the ground signals to come out of the yard as well.
They were black and blue?
No, that's dual function. We'll come to that. The black ones move the points over. So normally the points are set for mainline running. If you pull the lever out or you reverse the lever, it'll switch from N to R. So normal means the positions of the points is normal, i.e. set for through line running. If you pull the lever out of the frame, the N will turn to R, meaning the points have been reversed, so they're set for another route. Blue, that locks the points into position. So the blue is generally a facing point lock, so a facing point is anything where a train can take a different route. So the blue just adds that extra layer of protection. I don't want to give the impression that the points move freely as the trains go over them, but this is just that added bolt that sits on the points, generally used for passenger trains. As we come down, you'll see a combination of colours. So blue and black, that's dual function. So as I said, black moves the points over and blue locks the points into position. You'll also notice at this stage that some of the lever tops are shorter than the others. So the taller ones are the mechanical levers and the shorter ones are just like a big electrical switch, so they've been cut down. Up until 1980, there was another signal box, ever so slightly bigger, only by about 3 levers, called Banbury Junction. When that closed in 1980, Banbury North Signalbox took on all of the work that used to be controlled by Banbury Junction. So Banbury North only used to control this half of the diagram. When Banbury Junction closed in 1980, it took over this part. So a lot of these signals that you'll see couldn't be worked mechanically because they're so far away. You'd have to have such, you'd have to be like Jeff Capes to be able to get the lever out of the frame. So these sets of levers here were the furthest ones away from the signal box, and they would have been the hardest to work. So everything's disconnected now. They're nice and easy to pull out the frame. But back in the day, you would have had to put effort on there because not only are they difficult and they're far away, they're also on a curve as well. So that makes things especially difficult.
I watched the signal reader and it went
Yes.
3 times before we could get it up.
Well, some of the signal boxes actually, some of the signals had boards on the back of the wall, so you could give yourself that extra bit of leverage for difficult signals. As we move further down the frame, we have the chevron levers, which are for detonators. So depending on the position of the arrows, so this one's pointing down, indicating it's on the down line. Obviously if the chevrons are pointing up, they're on the up line. So that's generally for emergency purposes. So if the next signaller along has communicated me emergency message on the bell, or I've looked out and seen people walking across on the track, I could pull the detonator lever out of the frame and it would apply. The detonator plates are on the top of the railhead. So that would go out to the top of the railhead, the train would go over it, it would make a bang, loud enough for the driver to stop the train. Or, in theory, that's what should happen. On the last night of this signal box, there's a bit of a tradition, so signaller dropped 7 detonators on the track just to wake up the passengers, I like to think, at about 1:30 in the morning, safe from falling asleep. Good now, Dad. So yeah, that's all of the levers there. You see occasional blue and brown ones as well. So that's giving permission to the next signal box along, or a ground frame. So ground frame is like a miniature version of the signal box, where a shunter or a member of railway staff can go out there and move points localised to the area. So as I was saying about that stone train, that goes into that siding there, and those points are released by a ground frame, because of course there make so many movements with that train. If the signal was to do it here, they'd be walking up and down, for about 4 hours putting levers back out. So you release the ground frame, the shunter can go down there, move the points by themselves, and then give permission for the signaller to signal the train.
Does he have to take a token off you as proof?
You can do it in some areas, not to Banbury North, but some ground frames are literally operated by the token.
Right.
But not here, it's literally released by the lever from this frame. Coming onto the block shelf, as I say, these are the indicators of the position of the points. These levers are electrical locks for the levers, so in some places you wouldn't be able to release some of the levers without pushing the lock in and putting it out. So there's a story here. We had the goods yard. Shunters used to run alongside with the wagons, put a shunting stick under the wheels of the train to stop the train. Unfortunately, he slipped underneath and lost an arm. But They said, don't worry, we'll give you a job in Banbury North Signalbox. But of course, if you can't pull the levers out the frame without locking them, he had a bit of difficulty. So I understand, I'm reliably told, to use the headlock each lever to get the lever out of the frame, which I think is probably okay for the first couple of moves, but at the end of an 8-hour shift, all you've got left is a great big mark on your forehead. Coming off the block shelf, as I say, you've got the point indicators, you've got the electrical locks, you've got what you call your telephone concentrator, so to talk to any of the drivers, if they rung up from a signal, you press the button there that applies to the signal that you're talking to. You get up and just speak to the driver. In the middle here,
is that linked to the GSMR?
GSMR terminal is slightly different, so that used to sit on the shelf, but they've taken it out because they're reusing it straight away. So GSMR terminal is literally like a replacement for your more conventional radio cab to shore between signaller and driving cabs. But essentially, it's just like talking to someone on the telephone these days, rather than having to do the usual radio protocol, like over, out.
Which is what we used to do.
Yeah, indeed. This in the middle here is a piece of Victoriana. No, sorry. So up until 2004, the next signal box down the line, about 10 miles down the line, was Fenny Compton. That would have been pretty much the same as this, although it was a prefab building, so not as exciting and not as attractive. When that was replaced by Leamington Spa, as a person controlling a computer, they gave you a representation of the Leamington Spa area. So it's got all the signal numbers on there, and the trains will move along automatically. When the trains get to Fenny Compton coming towards Banbury, there'll be an alarm which alerts the signaller here to say there's a train coming. So it will leap onto the frame and start communicating with Banbury South. So we get to these instruments here. So these are the old conventional instruments that the signaller would use to communicate with the next signal box along. So it does that by a series of bell codes. If a train's coming up from Fenny Compton going towards Banbury South, as I say, when it passes Fenny Compton, you'll hear an alarm. I will draw Banbury South's attention to the fact there's a train coming by contacting them on the bell. So it's one on the bell to start with. They will respond. So the next signal box along will always respond with the same bell code, unless they couldn't understand, what you were trying to tell them, they wouldn't respond, or they just got on the phone and say, "What on earth are you trying to do?" So a bit like Morse code, really, but rather than bashing out all the individual letters and numbers, you would describe it in railway terms. So each different type of train has got a different bell code. So an express passenger train is 4 beats on the bell. Signal behind, as long as you can hear the train, would ring back. Oh. That was a 4, not 1, 3. They would turn their instrument to line clear, so that's telling me that the line's clear to signal a train. Looking at the diagram, the first signal we control is signal number 51. Pull that out. That's a nice light one, as I say, it's cut down, so it's just an electrical switch. Next signal along, signal number 50. So provided that Banbury South have then cleared their signals, that will go from green to yellow to double yellow to green. Sorry, what? Red to yellow. There you go. I'm glad I spotted that. As the train's approaching Banbury North Signalbox, signal will be looking out for one thing as it passes by, and that's the red light, or tail light at the back end of the train. So, 2 reasons why the tail lamp might not be on. First one, the driver might not have switched it on, which is always possible. Second one, if there's no light, it means he's left half the train behind. So, I'm reliably told that there was a train that left Banbury one year. This is when Astrop signal box was still there, so Astrop was the next one from Banbury South. Before the days of having telephones at each signal, driver pulled up to the first Astrop signal, firmly at danger. We sat there, and sat there, and sat there, and in the end, thought, blow it, I'll just go past. Creep up to the signal box. As he got to Astrop signal box, a massive red flag, bigger than you've ever seen, stuck out the window. Driver shouted up, "What's up?" He said, "Have a look behind." "Oh, left the train behind. So we've taken the locomotive, that's fine. But there we are. So it did happen. But thankfully, let's assume that the train's coming here, it's all complete. I'd alert Banbury South to the fact it's coming by bringing them, let's say, 2 on the bell, train entering section. A switch to instrument to train online. As the train's moving up, you can see here on the down line we've got 2 track circuits indicated, but the lights will follow the train. So out of the visibility of the signal box, you've got virtually 360, so it's quite good. But of course, when a train's disappeared around the corner, I can't tell when it's gone, so I don't want to be throwing levers back and put signals back to danger in front of a driver, because they tend to get a bit upset about that. So, as it's going past, goes past signal number 51, I can put the lever back in the frame. As it goes past signal number 50, back in. This is passenger train, it will load it with passengers. Once it's gone past Banbury South, they will call my attention, so it's 1 on the bell always. Respond. Then they'll tell you the train's gone or the train is out of section. They'll put their instrument back to normal then, and the whole process starts again. As you can see, we've actually got an array of instruments here at Banbury, and they apply to the different lines where you can send trains or receive trains. So, the main line is this bell. No, this one. The down relief or platform 1 is this bell, and the goods line is this bell. So, if I was in a little room, I know where I was trying to be called. So, you know, you'd be expected to be here, 1 person, freight, 12 hours. So you'd have to time your meal breaks well, and you'd certainly have to time your little room breaks very well as well. There was a signaller here that had quite a profuse nosebleed, and it was about 2 to 3 hours before they could send someone to relieve him. And by the time its relief turned up, there was blood over him, blood over the lever tops, blood over the instruments. But little stories like that just go to show the dedication of some of the signallers, because in those circumstances he could have quite easily packed up and gone, but the fact is he stayed at post just to keep the trains running. And you hear lots of little stories like that. So that's essentially the basics of the signal box. If anyone does have any questions, then please feel free to ask, because there are always things that I could rabbit on for hours about.
You have to write a register.
You do, yeah. So the register you'll see on the desk here. So I understand that the signallers had an opportunity here because of modern advances. So we have a system called Trust these days that records everything automatically. The signallers, I'm told, had the opportunity to apply and say we don't want to fill this train register in anymore. But they decided not to. They wanted to stick with tradition. So in here is every train movement and every bell signal, and indeed every signaller change, every visit from the signalling inspectors, as was. It's all recorded in here. So it has the down line on one side, the up line on one side, and feel free to have a look later, but essentially you'll be writing down the description of the train. So train descriptions are 4 characters. The first one is always a number. That's telling you the type of train. So they run from 0 to 9. So 0's a light locomotive, 1's an express passenger train, 2's a stopping passenger train, so on and so forth. Second character is always a letter, and that's telling the signaller the general area that the train's going. So of course, country being massive, cross-country trains have always got a few letters. So heading away from here, they're either M or Mike, which means going to Birmingham New Street. They're either E or Echo, which means they're going further afield, so places like York, Newcastle, Edinburgh. Sierras, they're heading deep into Scotland, so the Anglo-Scottish services are always Sierra. And the next 2 numbers after that just signify that they're different from the previous train. So generally our services, Chiltern services, there'll be 1 Hotel 01 in the morning, and the next one will be 02, 03, 04, so on and so forth. After that, you'll be recording either the alarm from Fenny Compton, or when you've received a bell code from Banbury South, the time the train has passed the signal box, and the time that the train has left the area controlled by the signal box. And it's all recorded here meticulously, but as I say, I'll let you have a look in there. when you need to.
Have you got the log where they've actually signed out for the last one?
That's gone with the signal.
I guess.
Yeah, that's been kept safe.
Yeah.
I should also explain actually about the interlocking disc on there quickly. So, what you'll see down there is a camera that's sitting just below where I'm standing now. So, as you're moving the levers out of the frame, it's driving what we call the tappets, which are the vertical bars downwards. You can just see the ends of them there. And they have little notches cut into them. So that's preventing the signaller from making an opposing move. So by pulling the black levers out, I'm moving the points across. Hold on. Can you put that lever?
Yeah. Put the lever back in.
It's not in yet.
Right to the stop.
So by pulling that series of levers out, you would have seen the tappets driving down. And the little teeth there, they cut in with the horizontal bars. So that prevents you from making an opposable move. So with the points locked, you can just see the tappet bar on the right hand side there. I can't do without unlocking the points again. What you'll always find when you come into a signal box generally is that the facing point locks for main lines are always standing out of the frame, because that's going to be applying for the majority of movements that you're going to be making in the signal box. So rather than having to keep resetting the locks, you always leave the locks on for main line running, and you only put them back in when you need to make a move that comes across the station. So I think that just about covers everything.
Significance of your red collar.
There we are. See, people always ask me about that. So it's not an egg cup, although it does make a very good egg cup on itself. So a lot of people will be aware of Quinton's Hill.
Rule 55, is it? Rule 55?
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
So in 1915 there was an accident in Scotland in Quinton's Hill, and it is said that had the signaller used this, which is modern day parlance is called a reminder appliance, or otherwise a lever collar. So for anyone who doesn't know, there was a big pile up in 1915. So it's a big troop train, and everyone, as I understand it, lost their lives that were on the train. Now, the signaller had left the troop train in place and signalled an express train on top of it. But it's cited that the signaller had either forgotten or misremembered that there was a train there to start with. So the idea behind applying these is that it's adding as a reminder to the signaller as using them. With that, over the top of the lever, I can't get the catch at the back and move the lever back into the frame. So there is another incident on the Settle and Carlisle line where that was similarly said to have caused an accident and loss of life. Yes, but Quinton's Hill is the one that most people are familiar with.
And the loco fireman didn't do what he should have done, which was visit the box and check that
That's
the
right.
collar was on and sign the book to say that he'd done that.
Indeed, yeah. So in most railway accidents, actually, you'll find that it's not one single sole cause. It is a vast combination. But that said, from every railway accident there has ever been, there's generally been a recommendation.